Good afternoon, everyone. Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Welcome to People Manager on Cam, the online show of the People Management Association of the Philippines, the premier organization of HR and business leaders in the country. My name is Joanne. I'm the Asia Pacific Customer Success Manager of Leah Harrison, and I am your host for this afternoon. I'm so excited to be with you all on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. This is our second episode for 2022, and our show airs every third Wednesday afternoon. We have four segments, and all of these segments aim to share and discuss critical HR and business matters. We're so excited to be with you all this afternoon. Do send in your comments, questions, and we would love to interact with you. Before we get into our show, I would like to invite you to check out our People Manager magazine online, and you can access that to triple W, sorry, dot peoplemanager.ph. And we have our articles there. We have our volunteer writers, and of course, we're also looking for volunteer writers. Do contact Sarah Niguez for your articles, and if you have any questions on how you can also participate in our show, and also how you can partner with PMAP. Let's get into our show. So, as I mentioned, we have four segments. P, the first letter for PMAP stands for People Watch, and that highlights our peers. We will meet our the leaders in HR and business, and also, of course, we will feature upcoming talents in the community. M for Must is our second segment, and this is when we will talk about the current issues affecting our daily lives, key learnings, urgencies, and items that are non negotiables. A for Anticipate This is our third segment. We will talk about events, ideas, innovation, or breakthroughs that we all have to be aware of. And our last segment is P for Perk Your Heart. We will be excited with health and wellness, lifestyle tips, fashion trends, and hobbies. So that is our episode every third Wednesday of the month. So calendar that and make sure that you are with us every third Wednesday of the month. For this month, our theme is choices. And that is because we will all be faced with a very tough decision come May 9th. So to help our viewers or listeners, if you are just listening to us on the side, we will discuss qualities and competencies that we should look when we are looking for our next president of the Philippines. So very major decision that we all have to make. Of course, we also have to vote for our senators, and all the other government officials. And this episode aims to help us and be guided as we make this very critical decision. So, to our viewers, I would like to ask you and send in to the comment section what is the criteria, one criteria that you are looking for in your president? We would love to hear your thoughts about that. And while we are waiting for your comments, let us get started. We will go to our first segment right away because we only have an hour for our very this for we have very exciting guests this afternoon, and we will get right to them this afternoon. So, our first segment for People Watch, our topic is Pangulo ng Filipino. And I am so excited because our segment host for this afternoon comes all the way from Palawan. We have the 2022 PMAP Palawan Chapter President, Ms. Maria Cristina Gonzalez Pearson. Hi, Tina. Good afternoon.
Hi, Joan. Thank you. Yes, good afternoon and happy Wednesday. Appreciate your joining us in People Manager on Cam's People Watch, right? So I'm Christina Pearson, Palawan Chapter President. So the national elections is just around the corner, 20 days away to be exact, right? All the activities surrounding this election has been heated, at times aggressive, and all consuming on all sides, oftentimes with accusations slung all over the place. So each side believing that their candidate is the best and is the solution to our country's problems, right? So these differing opinions and support of candidates have caused friendships to end, families to be divided, and a flurry of unfriending on social media. So the basis for choices or decisions made on which candidate to support and vote for are mostly personal, representing their understanding of what their candidates stand for, right? So they're also based on perceived achievements, platforms, promises made, which these candidates, of course, will be held accountable for. But it goes deeper than all these. Voters seem to have chosen candidates who they can relate to, right? Someone closer to their reality, it seems. Others just simply want change, opting for the lesser evil or opting for someone who seems to shine the brightest. So we'd like to share with you some videos of a handful of voters who have agreed to present their differing opinions on the candidates they will be voting for. Again, these voters do not necessarily represent the vote of the general population. So their points of view are their own and are not PMAPs. So let's go ahead with the video or videos.
Who is my president? My president is Leni Robredo. Why? VP Leni has a clean record and concrete credentials. She has been a public servant long before being a politician. She also inspires unity and action among people. She is a true servant leader who has been hands-on and taken risks, sharing responsibility, building and strengthening communities down to the grassroots level. VP Leni has no record of corruption and done a lot of service. On May 9, 2022, your vote is your voice, and your voice is your choice. Be sure to express yourself.
So ayun, bakit po si Bongbong Marcos ang napili ko maging presidente ngayong darating na halalan ng 2022? Sapagkat sa lahat po ng kandidato, siya lang po ang nakikitaan ko ng plataforma at walang paninira sa mga katunggali. At ako po ay pinalaki ng aking magulang na maganda ang kwento tungkol kay Ferdinand E. Marcos at ang mga proyekto na hanggang ngayon ay napapakinabangan ng mga infrastruktura, ospital, paliparan, mga tulay, mga daan, na hanggang ngayon ito ay tinatawag ng legacy. At ako bilang supporter o sumusuporta sa kandidatura ni Bongbong Marcos, ako po ay isang social media vlogger ng Partido Federal ng Pilipinas at hanggang sa huli, hanggang sa Mayo po protektahan ko ang boto ni Bongbong Marcos. So yun.
Hello, I am Marisa Montecastro, a wife, a mother of 6, and a businesswoman. I'm very glad to inform you that my family has chosen Leni Robredo as our president. Why? Because we believe that Leni embodies all the qualities we are looking for in a leader. She leads by example, she has the feel for the masses, and she has shown that her government will be based on transparency, accountability, honesty, and integrity. She gives hope and promises of change. I believe that she is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Magandang hapon sa lahat. Ako po si Francisco Tosara Jr. Kasalukuyan nagtatrabaho sa Picmao bilang isang warehouse officer. Ngayong panahon na to, malapit ng eleksyon. Magpili tayo ng ating presidente. Ang napili ko ay si Isko Moreno dahil siya ay may kakayahang mamumuno sa ating bayan. Kasi makikita natin sa kanya ano ang pamumuno sa Maynila at saka ngayon gawa siya mag-apply siya ng presidente. Siguro ito na ang panahon na mabago ang ating bayan. Maraming salamat po.
My president is Leni Robredo. Nakita ko sa kanya ang sincerity. Nakita ko sa kanya na tapat siyang maglingkod. Nakita ko sa kanya na buhay niya ang maglingkod sa taong bayan. It's a service to the people. Nakita ko sa kanya na she can deliver. Kung ano yung sinasabi niya, ginagawa niya. And most of all, she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's saying. Alam ko na siya yung tao na kapag sinabi, magde-deliver. Bakit ko siya gustong manalo? I wanna go home. I've been away in the country for more than 30 years. I moved from the States and then New Zealand. Umuwi rin ako ng Pilipinas. But I decided to go back to the States and then New Zealand. Tahimik dito. Walang mga chismisan, walang siraan. Ang gobyerno, ang siyang nasusunod. ang mga tao sumusunod sa gobyerno. Ang mamamayan pinapakinggan. Katulad ng mga programa ni VP Leni Robredo, merong unemployment insurance, tinatawag na anti-age discrimination, na kung sakaling matanda ka at kaya mo pang magtrabaho, you'll be able to work. Ang insurance, health insurance, ipoprovide niya sa maraming Pilipino, lalo na sa mahirap. At higit sa lahat, bibigyan niya ng pagkakataon yung mga lumalabas ng bansa na mabuhay, na magkaroon ng sweldo, na at least competitive sa ibang lugar. Hindi ba napakaganda nun na hindi ka na kailangan lumayo sa mga mahal mo sa buhay? Yan ang isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit gusto kong manalo si Leni Robredo. Alam kong magagawa niya mabalik ang tiwala sa gobyerno. Alam kong magagawa niya na bumalik ang pagmamahal ng mga tao sa bawat kapwa-tao, at alam kong magagawa niya na malinis ang gobyerno, na bumalik ang mga nawalang values nating mga Pilipino. Yun ang tinatawag na unity. Pag nagkaisa tayo, ay malayo ang mararating natin.
Okay, so those are just a few of the videos that we have, and again, it doesn't represent PMAP's viewpoint. Okay, so let's think about it. Whoever ends up winning in this election will cause discontent, to put it mildly, on the opposing camps, right? So this is normal and expected, but how should we move on as a country? Not everyone has the option to leave and migrate to a country of our choice. We will be stuck for the next few years with whoever will be our next president, vice president, and all the other posts filled. So are we strong enough to let things go? It seems to be a normal reaction post-elections to always be dissatisfied with whoever gets voted in, right? Can we take the high road and give our elected officials a chance? We should, hard as it may seem, because the truth is, what choice do we have? We voted, maybe won, possibly lost, but we can't all win. So as a nation, we should give the newly elected officials, leaders, a chance for our country, for our children. And whoever ends up in the seat of power, if they end up doing the country or its citizens wrong, then we act as a nation. Naive and cliche-ish as it may seem to some, the reality is we've weathered storms and have come out stronger, hopefully wiser, right? And we will do it again and again for the sake of our children and our country. Back to you, Joan.
Thank you so much, Tina. And we can see different views and different reasons, different beliefs basically on sino nga ba ang ating iboboto, no? And I'm sure same with you, Tina. It's also not an easy choice to make, right? As for me, I watch the debates, I research on each of them. How about you, Tina? What has helped you in making your choice? I will not ask you who your choice is, but what is helping you in this process?
You have to do a lot of research. Not listen to what's on social media. You try to avoid that. Do research on your own. Look for facts, right? Don't get too emotional with your choice. And then once you've probably selected, then you can support all the way. But it's also good to weigh in and be open, right? Open your mind to the other's choices. And, I mentioned earlier that it's caused some rifts, right? So I know even for me, it's hard to understand why people choose some, candidates over the other. But aside from respecting their decisions, we should just move on, right? This is just it's just a small part of our lives. So yeah, so that's what I suggest we do, because it is getting pretty heated up, right?
Okay. Thanks a lot, Tina. And we all have to make this decision. So it's now time for us to really reflect and come up with what is really our criteria as we make our very major decisions this coming May 9th. So I'm looking forward to the responses from our viewers, listeners. What are you looking for in your president? What is the criteria that is a must have for you as you vote this coming May 9. And of course, I want to say good afternoon as well to Joy Marie, Vilma, Ethel, and Istak. Patricina is also here, and Leonora is also here with us, joining all the way from NZ. Vilma, good afternoon to you as well. And do type in your answers to our question. What are you looking for in your president? And to also help us with that question, we will go to our next segment. So our must, we'll talk about the topic for our must segment is entitled Wanted President. And we are all HR people. We are very much familiar with hiring, selection, and we always come up with criteria as we go through all these processes. Now, as we are looking for our president, it's very important that it's very clear for us what is it that we are looking for in a president, and that is what we will talk about in our next segment. And I am so excited to welcome our segment host, the HR head for Mondnisen Corporation, Lawrence Go. Hi, Lawrence. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Joanne. So now, welcome everyone once again to our second segment called Musts, where we talk about topics that, as people managers, should not be overlooked or missed. In short, these are the non-negotiables. And for the month of April, our segment topic, as mentioned by our host, is Wanted President. And we are just a few weeks away from the national elections. So to help us better navigate the decision-making progress or process rather based on competencies, I am happy to introduce to you our guests. She was a faculty member of PMAP's diploma program in human resource planning and acquisition, and a certified trainer for high performance consulting and training solutions by the Center of Organizational Design in Colorado, USA. She is currently the president of the CESI Group and CEO of the IRC Institute. Our 2009 PMAP president, ladies and gentlemen, PP Grace Abella Zata. Good afternoon, PP Grace.
Good afternoon, Lawrence. Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Our pleasure to have you, PP Grace. Now, PP Grace, one of the most notable projects during your leadership as 2009 president of PMAP is the creation of a competency framework for the President of the Republic of the Philippines. Now, could you give our viewers, PP Grace, a brief overview of the roles of your research or that your research have found to be necessary for the country's top leader to competently execute?
Okay, so there are 5 roles. The first role is that of the strategic leader or kapitan ng barko. Currently, we are a middle income country or close to it, and assuming we want to reach developed status in 20 years. So the president must lead in creating pathways to reach that destination. So that's the first role. Second, of course, you need to be able to implement those strategies or pathways. So the second role is tagasulong ng programa ng gobyerno or manager and mobilizer. This role requires the president to direct and lead the executive departments and also to mobilize or bring together the people, the actors, the sectors that are necessary to support his program of government, like the Senate, for instance, or Congress, the legislators. Pangatlo, bantay ng kaban at yaman at kinabukasan ng bayan. Okay, so I think that's clear. The president must make sure we optimize and safeguard our resources, diba? Whether it's revenues, taxes, or our loans, or our natural resources. Also, the role requires the president to make difficult, possibly unpopular decisions, diba? Which might magagalit ang tao sa kanya, but they are necessary for the future of the country. Pang-apat, yung role ng servant leader. This means working hard, driven by genuine love for country. So, number 5, inspiring leader. Through personal example of integrity and competence, you rally the people together to achieve that goal that we are talking about. Yung unang sinasabi natin na bilang kapitan ng barko, di ba kailangan yung mga kasama mo, harmonious kayo. Hindi kayo nag-aaway-away dun sa loob. Kasi paano kayo makakaabot sa destination? So using effective communication techniques.
Thank you, PP Grace. So basically 5 roles as you've mentioned, no? So it looks like the future president would really have a lot of things expected from him or her, no? So, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see it in our context right now, no? because perhaps the second question that I would have for you, PP Grace, would be that given that we are in an extraordinary situation right now, no, a global pandemic affecting both public health and economy. So based on the framework that you've shared earlier, would there be a specific competency from the framework that you believe is critical in the country's recovery efforts?
Yeah, that's a good question, Lawrence. Actually, the role of crisis manager is embedded in the role of the kapitan ng barko. 'Di ba? Kasi pag kapitan ng barko, minsan ang tubig, maalon, 'di ba? Maraming ibang nangyayari, nabangga ka dito. So, nandoon sa role. And that requires, ano ba yan? Quickness of thought, agility, good decision making in the face of ano ba yan, yung you're not sure about what's going to happen, 'di ba? Pero if I may be allowed to add another perspective, no, while we need to recover and catch up because of the pandemic, there are also many things going around in the world. That the next president will need to do in addition, diba, to recovering from the pandemic. And these are the reordering of global manufacturing supply chains, accelerated digitalization all over the world, which might affect either positively or negatively our BPO offshoring sector, as well as shifts in geopolitics and the new trade deals. So, kaya yung role ng kapitan ng barko, navigating through a changing and dynamic environment, becomes even more important. I'm kind of stressing on the, not stressed, pero putting focus on this, Lawrence, because I noticed many voters, di ba, we tend to focus on one thing, o na talaga namang importante rin eh. But this is equally important. Yun.
Thank you, PP Grace. No, and now that you're stressing on kapitan ng barko, perhaps this is something that I may add in as a follow-up question to the second question that we have for you this afternoon. No, like for our voters, if they're going to look at their potential or at the candidates right now, no, how can they best identify if that particular candidate ay magiging mahusay na kapitan ng barko?
Okay, I guess, siguro sa debates, makikita mo naman yung the way of thinking. And then siguro, are there specifics, di ba? Like for me kung ako, I would ask, okay, ngayon, napuput into focus yung D sector of our, yung voter sector na D. Suddenly, we became aware of them. The minimum wage earners, the people who are in the informal sector, etc. Parang dapat kasi kung kapitan ng barko siyang magaling, okay? Magaling na strategist, dapat merong clear pathway na pinapakita sa atin. So how do we move majority or at least a big portion of the people in D and E to a higher economic class? What are the particular pathways? Sana pinapakita, nasaan ba itong mga taong to ngayon? O ano bang klaseng industriya ang ating gagawin para makalipat sila sa mas mataas na sector? So sana gano'n, no? Of course, makikita mo din yung tinatawag nilang resibo. Okay, in the past, okay, what kind of strategy did they formulate? 'Di ba? Sa dati ba nilang ginawa? Okay? So what was the strategy? Was there even a plan? Okay? And then siyempre, yung mga iba naman, how do you implement it? Na-implement ba yung mga planong yun?
Thank you, PP Grace. No, and that's going to be a very tangible example. No, and of course, as people managers, as HR professionals, very keen dapat yung eye natin, no, in looking at like siguro mga previous behaviors, no, para ma-identify natin kung may competencies.
Diba tayo when we interview executives, ano yung track record mo? You cannot speak in generalities, diba? Tayo nga we look at quantitative measures, diba? So what was the exact, we have to go beyond slogans kasi of uplifting the lives of people or of unit or whatever it is.
Thank you, PP Grace. No, now going perhaps to my third question for you, PP Grace. No, and going beyond knowledge and skills, kasi we're talking about competencies, we're talking about KSAs. No, looking at the president or at the future president rather, no, as human. now, just like us. What personal value or values are you hoping that the next president of the Republic of the Philippines believe in?
Okay, with the understanding that genuine love for country and integrity are non-negotiables. 'Di ba? May ganyan tayo. These are must. But
Mhm.
ako personally, I think they are critical but not sufficient. Okay. So, idadagdag ko diyan. Unang-una, yung ambition for the country. Na sana may energy and drive, 'di ba? To set big goals for our country the way that Xi Jinping did for China or the leaders of Vietnam are doing, as well as even Widodo of Indonesia. Okay, so yung energy and drive, importante yon. Alam mo, nakausap namin si dating presidenteng Fidel Ramos. Sabi niya, alam mo, yung trabaho ng presidente, ano yun, you're like a juggler, ang dami mong ginajuggle na balls. Boss, ang dami pang bato ng bato sa'yo. Kaya kailangan yan masipag, yung hindi halos natutulog sa trabaho. As well as having the ambition, hindi personal ambition, but ambition for the country. Pangalawa, agility. Yung mabilis din, parang, ay nako, mahuhuli na tayo, hindi ba? Sa infrastructure, sa lahat ng nangyayari sa mundo. Halimbawa, si Widodo ng Indonesia, he is concerned because yung mga lumilipat na mga companies from China are not moving to Indonesia. Tayo ba? Do we have that same sense of urgency? Or, we don't care, we're not aware of what's happening globally. So palagay ko yung agility plus a global mindset. Pangatlo, tough-mindedness. Yun na nga. Siyempre, presidente naman talaga kailangan tough-minded. I mean, we need to go beyond slogans. Na-explain ko na yun kanina di ba? At saka we need to, I think, be aware that good governance, while an important component, an indispensable component is integrity, it doesn't stop there. Yun ang sinasabi ko, kailangan siyang may pathway. Kaya maganda itong ginawa natin sa PMAP. Dahil 5 competencies na lahat actually, they complement each other. Parang, you cannot have one without the other, sabi nga nung kanta. Yun, so you have to look at it as a whole. Ganyan naman tayo, di ba? When we interview a manager or an executive, hindi naman pwedeng may integrity ka lang Or a company, for that matter. You just cannot have good people there. You must have specific plans, di ba?
Mhm. Thank you, PP Grace.
You,
No?
you,
And
you do that very well in Monde, di ba?
yes, definitely. So as you mentioned, PP Grace, no, the competencies and the values, kailangan they work hand in hand, no, and yung mga candidates natin, our future president, no, should possess itong mga competencies na to and mga values na to, so that they could really propel our country forward, no, in the next 6 years or perhaps longer than that. So thank you, PP Grace. So perhaps if you have any siguro mga closing message for our voters, given that we're only a few weeks away, no, from getting to May 9, do you have any parting words to them, for them, anything that they can take on, no, when they go to their voting precincts?
The president of the Philippines has vast powers. Okay, that's all I can say. So that is a very important role. And of course, so I hope everybody will think well, go beyond emotions, and make the right choice. And whoever wins, I think we need to, parang performance appraisal, di ba? Whoever wins, all of us, di ba, should also be very vigilant about seeing that these 5 roles are being performed well by whoever it is who wins. Whether it's somebody we really like, di ba? Or somebody who for us is even unthinkable to become president.
Mhm. I fully agree, PP Grace. No? So once again, thank you, PP Grace, for gracing our April 2022 People Manager on Cam. And I hope that this was helpful in providing our members, our viewers, another perspective in choosing the country's next set of leaders in the coming May elections. So once again, for our viewers, see you once again next month for another segment of Musts. This has been your host, Lawrence Ko. Again, gracing us is PP Grace Abelia Zata. Thank you once again, and back to you, Joanne.
So much. Thank you so much, Lawrence. And thank you so much, past President Grace of Zata. I really appreciated the reminders on the five criteria. I really, five competencies. I really appreciated that. So parang while you were talking, I was updating my file, which I use as I do my research for the president of the Philippines. And thank you so much. I really appreciated that. Now, talking about selection and also, of course, making a wise choice in terms of finalizing our choice. We'll go back to let's talk about how do we make the most out of sourcing tools. Of course, we will now go to our role as HR professionals, and we will talk about the matchmaker recruiter, and that is what we will talk about in our next segment, the third letter in the acronym of PMAP, letter A for anticipate this. And I'm so excited to welcome our segment host for this segment, the founder of Movimentum, Jacqueline Louie. Hi, Jackie. Good afternoon.
Hi, Joanne. Good afternoon. Maayong hapon kanatong tanan. After having learned from the two segments, that is, learning from the thought processes of our general public on the reasons and lenses about their choices, coupled with our learning on what a strong leader's strong points could be as a kapitan ng barko, along with the challenges and opportunities as we sail on and bring on the value chain impacting our country. For our segment today, this anticipate this, I am deeply honored to have meaningful conversations with our guest speaker for today around matchmaking. Is it a match made in heaven or something else? That's what we are going to talk about. So let us first welcome our guest speaker for today, who is an associate director at ZMG Ward Howell, a pioneer and the leading executive search and human capital management solutions company in the country, and concurrently the practice head of Asia People Search, an affiliate of the ZMG Group covering low to middle management positions. He has been in the recruitment industry for over 15 years. Alden is regarded as a generalist search partner to his clients, having covered entry, mid level, and executive search requirements for various industries and job functions. Help me welcome Alden Del Rosario.
Hi, Miss Jackie.
Hi, Alden. Good afternoon. Mayong hapon. So I would like to go right away no, to the question that will serve as a guide of our conversations today. So with the pandemic, what dynamic processes you have included in your practices when looking for new people for your organizations?
Thanks for the. May I just say, Miss Jackie, for a bit I got nervous listening to the two previous talks. No, I thought you were going to ask me about my preference of the president. Magiging political analyst ako. But anyway, yeah, going to your question, Miss Jackie, dynamic processes in selecting new people in the organization amidst the pandemic. This pandemic um, really shifted or changed the game in terms of choosing the next employer and choosing your next employee. So it's a two way. No. If before yung selection process natin would be on a face-to-face mode, interview in the office or on interview in a coffee shop, now you cannot do that because of safety precautions, because the government does not allow it, and because also of health, security purposes of health. An employee or an applicant or a candidate in an employer would rather just do things on a virtual scale. So, and on top of that, how do you address that? Because there are still people that are still exploring. There are people that still want to look for other companies that they can work for. At the same time, there are still companies that needed to sustain and look for people. So how do you now continue the process? So I think yung dynamic process that was added is really the embrace and the adoption of companies in the use of technology.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
technology now is very important, and not only in recruitment but in other areas, education, in consumer, fintech, etc., etc. But since we're talking about recruitment, finding people, interviewing people, screening people, the adoption of technology is something very important. So at the start of the pandemic, companies had to reflect and take a step back. How do we quickly adapt to that? So the normal things that would come in mind are investment in communication platforms like Zoom, MS Teams, Google Meets, and etc., etc. And also now companies have looked at their IT experts or IT professionals not as just a support or a help desk, but also as business enablers. Because there are, of course, big companies that have already these communication platforms, but how about those organizations also that are still trying to catch up? So IT now becomes a partner or an enabler for that meeting, for that virtual meeting to happen. So the aggressiveness and the quick adoption uh, is I think an important process in the entire screening. And this is just the short term. You look at it also on a long term, and I'll talk about the long term later on. Apart from this, if you look also at the dynamics of screening, normally when you talk about screening and interviewing candidates, you would ask questions: what are your milestones, accomplishments, what skills can you bring in? But there is also nag-evolve na rin kasi ang ano ang criteria, if I would call it, criteria of candidates and employers in looking for candidates. Not only are you looking for qualified candidates, but you're also looking for someone who has that quick accessibility and acceptance of work arrangements. If you would notice, kung dati ang mga tanong is how much can how much salary, what is the culture, what is the leadership like, what is the career plan in that new organization that I am applying for. Ang first question ngayon is, what is the work arrangement? Is it remote, hybrid, or on-site? And if you look at LinkedIn also, na-recognize rin nila yun because there's an additional column in LinkedIn. When you search LinkedIn, meron rin ng choice na type of work arrangements. Ayan, nandiyan ang hybrid, nandiyan ang on-site, nandiyan ang remote. And in relation to that is also proximity, correlating to work arrangement. If the person is near the work location, is near the office, that also becomes critical. Miss Jackie, there is a client. Normally hindi naman sila particular about proximity, pero sinasabi ang ano nila, can you find me someone that is just about 50 within the 15 or 20 kilometer radius of our company? Because that addresses what if there are changes again in the government, in the restrictions of the IATF, that their employees can still go on a hybrid or is still easily accessible. And also, I think companies also would want, or employers would want, to minimize that exposure to public, because that's in public transportation, you don't know kung sino yung katabi mo. There might be infection or transmission of the virus there. So if you get the employees closer to your work, to your office, there is you lessen the exposure to the public. Pwedeng siguro magbike na lang sila or maglakad. And another thing that also changed is yung questions about benefits. People now are very particular about medical benefits. Does it cover antigen or swab? Is it extended to the dependents? Yung dependents ba pwede rin mag-antigen, etc., etc. Now also ang tinatanong, kasama ba yung communication at saka internet subsidy? Meron rin bang electricity subsidy? Pati yung mga transportation arrangements, if people were before were doing public transportation, riding the MRT, ngayon meron na rin mga nagtatanong, is there a shuttle? And that becomes also a concern for for applicants or candidates. So I think in terms of the dynamic processes, it's really, I guess my answer here is being more sensitive and having that extra ear to know what are the thresholds, halves, and the deal breakers, both for the employer and the company. And this is because of the pandemic, which we are still in. We're in our third year already. But technology is my adoption to technology is very important on top of it.
Wow, this is a very rich sharing, Alden, now that you are allowing our public to be educated in a way now of what are really the trends and the emerging concerns both of the employer and the employee. And what I am getting there is each party is now having that evolving space that they are considering now. So the employer evolves its own space on who to look for, and the employee also is really evolving its own space on who to look for as the one who will be taking care of them. And what I am also hearing from you is the well-being is so very important this time. That's why it is good to really hire people within your reach, so that when there are things that will crop up, people can easily adapt and be flexible on certain situations that may come along the way. So as a somehow a last question, Alden, no, for our conversation today, since it was a very rich sharing that you have already given. Um, I'm very curious on how do you know that there is already a perfect match? Since you mentioned about it's not just the employer now who is looking for the right candidate, the candidates also are looking for the right employers who will really be serving their thresholds as well. So, how do we know that there is a perfect match between the candidate and the employer?
Um, I'll share with you three particular items that will basically be common between an employer and an employee, and see if they meet eye to eye on these three items. Of course, when you're looking for a talent, and if a talent is looking for his next job, is there a fit in terms of experience and experience, work experience, track record, and part of this is also knowledge. What knowledge do you bring in that particular job role? The skill is part of it. Anyway, these are things that you can see in the CV, no. But the next 2 points are very important, and we have to be sensitive about it. So first is experience, track record. Second is now we have to understand motivation, aspiration, the culture fit in the particular life stage of that employee who is applying for that specific company. Also, the particular business stage um, of the company, because I say life stage because on a personal basis more often the employee, and I say business stage because of the pandemic there are companies that have actually flourished. There are companies that have identified specific key job roles that have not been existent in their organization. Are they downsizing? Are they expanding even in this pandemic? So at what stage? So that's very important. So motivation, aspiration, life stage, and I will again repeat it. The arrangement preferences is becoming something also very important. The third one, of course, is the affordability. And you're talking about if there is a fit in terms of what the candidate expects to get or to be paid, or the salary, and what the company has allotted for that specific role. If you check all these three boxes, then I would say there is a good match, or a perfect match. If I would just if I can highlight, Ms. Jack, I'll give you a particular example, and this happened in the pandemic, no. So check na tayo sa experience, check na rin in terms of motivation. I think all the HR practitioners also have a check there. But there was this particular instance, and it happened 2 months before the pandemic hit, no. So it was a search project for a consumer company for a national sales manager position. And so it was finalized, everything was closed in January. By February and March, we were already talking about the pandemic. In March nga, it was a lockdown. But this particular candidate had a notice period that was 60 days. So April pa siya dadating. So ang nangyari dito is there was a question about affordability already. And the client was very transparent enough to say, okay, this is what we signed, but this is what we agreed with the candidate pre-pandemic. But now when he joins us on day one, we are in pandemic, and will be transparent with you that there will be business challenges. We cannot afford. However, ang creativity naman is he open to take a 30% pay cut and ilamsam na lang namin after 12 months. We just need to ride the tide of this pandemic and see how things are. So this is something that is new. First time that I've heard or encountered na nagpirmahan na tapos biglang may pay cut na 30%. Hindi pa nagsisimula. And normally, sasabihin mo, nako, mukhang magbaback out tong candidate na to. Because why would he go for a 30%?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
the person is still there.
yeah.
Because nagkaroon ng intindihan.
Yeah, I love what you emphasized is nagkaintindihan, Alden. No? So if there is like meeting of that aspiration, both the employer and the employee, I think what I am getting from you is there is really a match between the employer and the employee, because their expectations of each other at the onset has been served and has been supported along the way. So Alden, no? So we have already
Sorry.
it seems like very short, but it is very rich, you know. So short but rich sharing of the learning for today, you know. So I would like to ask you for any few last words for our listeners or viewers today.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm honored, and I wish everyone a happy afternoon. And siguro in connection to the two speakers, let's all wish our country the best in this coming elections.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alden, for a wonderful conversation with you this afternoon. Joanne, back to you.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And Alden, thank you so much. We are so honored with your presence this afternoon. And thank you for sharing. And my insights is that it's really indeed different times. And we should now look at selection, recruitment, hiring from different perspectives. And as business leaders, we have to adapt. Otherwise, maiiwan tayo. I very much agree about the discussions on hybrid work. And so therefore, the mindset should not be babalik tayo sa ating arrangement before COVID. So things have changed and it will continue to change. And so therefore, really true. I remember past President Grace highlighting agility is indeed very important. And we have talked about our choices from the national election to corporate recruitment in our the most recent segment. This time, in our fourth segment, we will now go to personal choices. So we will now talk about what are the choices that we make on a personal level, and that is what we will talk about in our fourth segment, Perk Your Heart. And I'm so excited to welcome the head for Center for Research and Publications of PMAP, Miss Sarah Nicoas. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Miss Joanne. Thank you so much.
Welcome, Sarah. So happy you are finally with us.
Yes, finally. Thank you, Miss Joanne. All right. Good afternoon once again. I'm Sarah Niguez and I'm your segment host for today's Perk Your Heart. So this afternoon, we'll talk about tough choices, and this could be about career, family matters, or something that you are passionate about. Pero madalas nating itanong sa ating mga sarili, pwede bang lahat? As they say, life presents us with all kinds of choices. And to help us in this discussion, we have invited a very special guest. She's somebody I really admire in PMAP. Gorgeous, kind, and intellectually interesting lady. She's currently the senior consultant for Great Place to Work for ASEAN, Australia, and New Zealand. She has almost 3 decades experience in human resource management, market research, and training. She's also a well-being and resilience advocate, triathlete, earth warrior, wife, and a mother. Friends, please help me welcome Ms. Rhea Rosas Gadi.
Magandang hapon. Maraming salamat, Sarah. Nakakataba yung perk your heart, na-perk yung heart ko with your generous introduction. I'm happy
Yes,
to be here.
kailangan nating ma-energize ang ating mga puso. Good afternoon and thank you for joining us again today, Ms. Rhea. I was reading your bio note and I noticed that your achievements are truly momentous. A career woman, mother, and a wife all at the same time. You know. So getting into those stages in your life may at some point prompted you to go through a difficult process of making a decision. Do you have some sort of a guiding principle in deciding which ones to pursue? And can you share with us how you arrived in making those decisions? And I hope that you will also share with us your experience as you go through those life stages.
Salamat. Nako, and we were talking about this earlier. Making choices is never easy. And the choices we need to make change as our life stages also change. So, kanina pinakikinggan ko, I like what Jacqueline mentioned about evolving. And making choices also allows us to evolve. So, yung title nakakatuwa, di ba? Sana all. Career na
Yes.
oo, mahirap nga ang aking habang malanobelang profile. But maybe what I wanted to share from my own experience is the career, the family, personal advocacies. Ang napansin ko in my personal experience, they all are available at the same time. But one just becomes more focused, or I get excited, or it needs my attention more depending on the life stage. So for example, when I was newly married, it was my husband and career. And then when I became a mom, it was being a mom. So as the life stages change, the situations where I had to make decisions and choices also change. So for example, one of the more challenging situations where I had to make a choice, it was difficult to make a choice, was a career shift and change in role. So if I may share, I became a consultant. I've spent a lot of years, 17 plus years with Development Dimension. And I love the organization. Palagi kong binibiro yung mga kasama ko. Diyan na ako nag-asawa, nagkaanak, naging nanay. Hindi naman ako gagawing lola ng anak pa ngayon. But because it was the environment where allowed me to evolve and also make those choices. And as I was given the opportunity to head the country operations, and talagang nakaka-excite, but it was a big responsibility. Parang 'di ba sa presidente, parang maliit siyang bansa, malaki ang responsibilidad, and making the choice or to accept was difficult. Hindi siya madali. But I went through a process of discernment. And I'll talk about this, and this is what I wanted to share this afternoon, that process of how do you arrive at a decision, or how do you prepare yourself? How did I prepare myself to arrive at that decision? And that was the discernment that was very helpful to me. So I was given that opportunity and assignment to be managing director. But over the years that I was in that role, nahirapan talaga ako. And parang I had a very good team, leadership team, very young, very purpose-driven, magaling talaga. But as their head, and given the business landscape at that time, I came to realize that I was not the right leader at that time to lead the operations.
Okay.
So, ang hirap parang, ay, ano ba to? Parang, dahil hindi ko kaya. So, I went through a process of discern, because I had to pause and step back and look at the current situation. I had to look at the future of the company. I had to look at my team. And also, I had to look at myself. So, parang lahat yan nilatag ko, and I really thought about it. And the process of paglalatag pa lang mahirap, kasi nga parang there's a lot of things that I had to consider, and there were consequences also of the decision. So, but what helped me in that experience of discernment was I went back to my values. I went back to what was really important to me. And at that moment when I made a decision, and this is also I learned from my mentor, it will always be the team and the clients before myself. So parang nahihiya kasi ako, parang I knew somebody better for the role has to be there. But hindi pwedeng pumasok yun while I was still there. So I had a heart-to-heart talk with my boss, and she was very open and also compassionate, siguro compassionate. And she understood, and she supported me all throughout my transition. So that was one of the most difficult situations where I had to make a choice. So talagang, but the process itself to arrive at the choice, when I did that discernment, it was really, what was I praying for? Kasi parang sa discernment, it's not even a choice of bad or good. It's a choice of between two good things, di ba? Do I think, just persist, or do I let somebody lead? Which is also a good option. So I prayed about it, and I prayed for the courage and also fortitude na lead me to arriving at that decision. So yun, that was one of the humbling also, but also it was a difficult experiences to make and make a decision. Maglalabas ba akong tissue? Niloko lang.
Yeah, you mentioned about discernment, ano? Kasi especially these times where there's a lot of noise, and it's very difficult to stay focused. It's very difficult to pause and drill down on items that you really wish that you really wanted to decide on. So ang tanong ko dyan is, how will you be able to share to our audience paano yung process of going through a discernment, other than kumbaga considering your colleagues, the future of the company, and also your personal attributes mo, personal aspirations mo. Kasi yung discernment pa lang parang ang hirap nang gawin na, o ang sinasabi ng society, dapat ganito ka, dapat career woman ka, you should be at the peak of your career, dapat yung pinakamataas na posisyon, yun yung i-target mo. Whereas, deep inside you, kinoconsider mo din na, I have a family, I have a son, I am a wife, I have a husband, and I am also thinking that there's another person better than me. So, kumbaga, how did you segregate all those, kumbaga, noises around you? Kasi napakahirap nun eh.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially the pressure that the society has put upon women.
Yeah. And I'll borrow what the word that you used, and it's very spot on. Noises. Noises.
Mhm.
The first step, mahirap but the first step to any major decision that I had to do is remove the noises. And to remove that, you have to stop. You have to find not peace, but you have to pause and create a space for you where you can think.
Okay.
Ang galing na kakasabi mo noises. Kasi nga maingay You cannot think, you cannot focus when the world around you is noisy. So that's the first thing that you need to do, remove the noise. So paano yun? It could be as simple as meditation, maglakad ka sa park, something that is quiet. Sa umaga, tahimik. Sa gabi, tahimik. I even went through nung pandemic, nasa taas ako ng bubong ko. And some of my friends and my spiritual director, when I attended a Servire retreat, ang tawag ko doon, bubong. Makinig sa bulong sa bubong. Kasi hindi ka makalabas And yung bubong namin is one of the most quiet places in our home. So, wala naman akong garden. But, no. So, find time, make time to find that space, personal space for you.
Yeah. Ang ganda ng sinabi mo, makinig sa bulong sa bubong. Kasi sometimes when we pray, parang we feel like our prayers were trapped sa ceiling lang, ano? So, pero the good thing is when we pause, when we make space for ourselves to take some quiet time, pansin ko when we make a decision that's really spot on at the center of, if I may say, God's will, we experience a sense of peace. Kaya nga nung nag-uusap tayo kanina, sabi mo, kapanatagan ng loob. Can you elaborate more on that?
Oo. And it's not, the personal space and quiet is not even about spirituality yet. It's about yourself. It's very interesting that you mentioned, I have to think about my husband, my anak, my team, society. When listening to it, bakit wala yung me? And that's the most important thing to think of first. Yung sarili ko, and not in a selfish way. Kasi ikaw yung, while the environment around you your choices might impact them, you have to take a look at your being first. Sarili mo muna. That's where the quiet helps. Tingnan mo yung sarili. And yung kapanatagan, when I'm up there or when I'm in my quiet place, syempre, kailangan kong ilabas yung mga naiisip ko sa loobin ko. I need to articulate it. And what has helped me in that process is journaling. Mahilig ako magsulat Dami kong notebook. Dati kahit sa likod ng resibo ng bus, minsan nagsusulat ako sa receipt. Kahit anong receipt. Kasi parang those are my thought bubbles, I have to write it down. But in journaling, it helps you visualize what you're thinking. But it also helped me put down the option. So nakikita ko siya. Kasi minsan nahirap, di ba? Mag-isa ako, sabi ko sarili ko, oy, Rhea, ganyan. But when I write it down, pros and cons, and that's where the consultant, I think my training as a consultant would come in. Ito yung medyo tactical Sige, pros and cons, ganyan. At least nakikita ko. At more than I see it, I'm helping myself process. The thinking process helps me. So I journal it. So, then pag nakita ko na, okay, then that's where I pray over it. Okay, pray over it. And that's, yung kapanatagan kasi hindi ko siya ma-explain, and it's not immediately in one sitting lalabas siya It varies. I guess it varies. To me, it goes through some period of time. Pero mararamdaman mo siya pagka habang tinitingnan mo na yung options and you pray about it and you think about what's ahead of you and what you have at present, then you make that decision, mapapansin mo, ako napansin ko, napapanatag yung loob ko yan. Sometimes it may not be the right decision, but you feel that ito yung decision that I can do, I want to make. Hindi ko siya ma-explain, but it's a process. And I was sharing with you earlier, I like this line I heard from one of my coaching classes. Clarity is in the process. And I'll just share this bit of kwento na when I did my first retreat, diba, a spiritual retreat, it was a silent retreat. And I highly recommend once a year you do a silent retreat. And then my spiritual director asked me, so why did you come? What are you looking for in this retreat? At that time, I was going through, I had to make a decision also. And I said, Father, I want to find answers. And then sabi sa akin ni pare, what if there are no answers? Sabi ko pangatlong araw na ng retreat. So parang, it dawned on me, Father naman sana sinabi yan sa flyer, no? So, but it dawned on me sometimes, because it's a process, it's possible you will not find the answers, but I became more aware of myself. Not finding the answer. But in that clarity and awareness of myself, suddenly nagkakaroon ng linaw yung sagot, leading me to a decision. So for me, that's my experience. And I'm always grateful to my community, Magisdeo, and the Jesuits who have helped me, taught me about discernment as a process. And because I use it even outside of a retreat. So major decisions, I go through it. Lagi ako may kalakip na dasal, and then it helps. That's how I learned how to handle making tough decisions in life, both work, family, advocacy.
Yan. Parang naiiyak ako sa mga sinabi mo. Ako yung naiyak no? Oo. I'm getting key points based on what you said. Having the time to be with yourself, yung quiet or stillness, timing, and I can also say that at some point you were looking for affirmation when you joined a quiet retreat. So I'm looking at those things. This time, what practical tips can you share to our listeners, especially those who are in the crossroad of pursuing their dream job and building a family in the hopes of achieving a meaningful and peaceful life, as they say?
Yeah. What helped me, maybe to add on to the discernment process and the pause, is I learned to have a circle of trust. These are a group of people. Some of them are not barkada, some of them are barkada, some of them are my prayer group. Kumbaga may mga pockets of, I call them my circles of trust, because it's where I need a different perspective to look at the situation I'm currently face. And then they ask me the questions. They don't give me the solutions, but they help me think through. So I call them my circles of trust. So for example, if it's looking for a new work, a career shift, it's helpful to ask people who are actually in that industry, in that career, and get some idea or information, know what you're looking for, what the job offers. So that helps. What also helps, and this I learned during the pandemic when I joined the coaching program by Coach Masters. It's, to some people, to me, it works that I talk to a coach because they don't know me eh. So kumbaga parang yung takot ko, baka ma-judge ako nito, baka hindi. It's just really a very open, objective way of listening and helping me look at the situation from a different lens.
Mhm.
So kasi minsan tayo pagka sa situations, I get too close to the situation. So parang hindi na ako makatingin ng ibang pananaw or perspective. So having that circles of trust or a coach, somebody who can help you look at the situation or a career objectively or from a different lens help.
Mhm.
Plus of course, yung values and purpose, you always go back to it. So like right now, when I joined Great Place to Work, yun na parang that was also a major decision for me. But I was so moved during the interview. There's only one question that both my boss now and the regional head asked me. How can we support you in your aspirations? And that was it. So parang, syempre inisip ko ako, matatanggap ba ako? Parang, am I going back to HR? Parang tatanggapin ba ako? Tanda ko na di ba? So kahit magpagupit ako ng buhok na ganito at magkulay. So, I mean, age is, but that was the deal breaker for me. And I prayed about it. And to hear my boss and the heads supporting my advocacy, it was so yun.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Rhea. I think we had a very deep conversation, and I hope na mas marami pa tayong oras, ano. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing a lot of insights for today's segment. Thank you so much. Over to you, Miss Joanne.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And of course, Ms. Rhea, thank you so much for sharing and trusting us with your story. That was a very heartwarming discussion. And my takeaway there is the courage to make mistakes. Because sometimes Sarah asked about discernment, and during those times, making sure that we're making the right decision. Sometimes we just have to take a leap of faith. And sometimes we make wrong decisions and we pivot, and we fix the situation. But thank you so much. I can relate with this story. I'm also a mom. I'm working as well, and of course, so many big decisions that we had to make as well. Thank you, really. I hope we can have another conversation, and sana we can have that coaching session as well. Thanks a lot again, Rhea. Thank you so much to all of our guests this afternoon. Of course, to the ones who shared their insights on who their president is in our first segment. Past President Grace Abdelazata, thank you so much for sharing, for being with us this afternoon. We are really honored that you joined us and shared with us the competencies that we should look for in a president. And of course, Alden Del Rosario from HL People Select and ZMG Ward Howell, thank you so much for sharing us your insights on about being a matchmaker recruiter. And Rhea, again, thank you so much for being with us and sharing us your insights on sana all, no, when we are balancing all these decisions in our life. And of course, I'm looking forward to having our segment host back to the show. We have Christina, Sarah, and Lawrence. Let's hear your thoughts. Jacqueline unfortunately has a meeting and will not be able to join us anymore. Christina and Lawrence, I'm interested. What are the characteristics of leaders that you're looking for as you make your decision? I mean, a few weeks from now, we will all be trooping to the precincts. What's helping you during this time? What are you looking for?
You want me to go first?
Go ahead, Dina.
Yeah, hi. It's very important. Integrity is very important. Integrity, love of country, and the sincere desire to help. Of course, not themselves, the constituents as well as the country progress. Listening to what I heard a while ago, I totally agree with, I think, past president mentioned the criteria that we need to look at. So I totally agree with that. Be objective, put the emotions aside, right? And think of history also. History will help teach us.
Yes.
It's like in analytics, right? It's like analytics. You follow the trends, the points, right? And then you connect the dots, right? So that would be a safe way to kind of, we don't know what the future will hold. But yeah, there.
Thanks a lot, Tina. How about you, Lawrence?
For me, siguro, it has been very evident, no, that this election mobilized a lot of people from the comforts of their homes, no, people attending rallies, people being very very vocal in social media, no, and any every platform that they have access to, and the energy sometimes drowned the logical and the rational side of supporters, no. So reading the competency framework for the Philippine president, no, that PIMA prepared in 2009 and that PP Grace mentioned earlier in detail, no, was really interesting for me. So I think I will surely, be sharing that to my peers in the people management practice and really try to align in terms of identifying who's going to be my next president or who's going to be the next people in my ballot, no, come May 9th. So that was very powerful for me.
Correct, correct. I will also actually share it, especially with those who are non-people manager. Yes, Tina, you were saying something?
Yes, so I totally agree with what Lauren said, and we've tried that in a less formal way. But sometimes it's very difficult when there are emotions and biases involved already. You want them to see reason, whichever whoever you decide to support, but it is an uphill battle. But it's something that we should engage in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks a lot. And Sarah, your conversation with Ray was really very heartwarming. I can relate very much. You was helping you manage the many different balls that you are juggling, because I know you also have kids, you are a wife, and then of course you are in the many different committees of BMAP, and it's just how are you doing it? To be honest, nandito si Sarah sa meeting, nasa kabilang meeting naman si Sarah, paano ba niya ginagawa to? How are you doing it as well?
No, I'm just blessed to have a group of people um, who shares the same values. No, I have a network, a support network. So from the management of PMAP to my peers, to my team, and also to my family. And of course, without the energy that I'm getting from the Supreme Being, I won't be able to do all these things. Yun.
Correct,
And I
correct.
really like the discussion started by Miss Tina, Sir Lawrence, and even Ma'am Jack. So what dawned on me is that whenever we make choices, whether on a personal basis or a choice that would impact would have an impact in the society and overall in our country, we have to look at what values are we espousing, kasi yan yung pinaka bottom line if ako personally, if I make a decision, it must be based on the values that I believe in.
Correct, correct. I actually also created a decision matrix where I have the criteria I'm looking for, and then yun yung minamatch ko doon yung ano, whether it's a personal decision I have to make, or the candidates for president. That's what I use, so that I will be objective and I will not be driven by too much by emotion. Thanks again, Tina, Lawrence, and Sarah, and of course Jackie for joining us this afternoon. Really appreciate. I'm sure you are all very busy, but you are with us this afternoon. Thanks again. So we are all faced with a decision. Every day we have to make decisions, and sometimes these are life-changing decisions, such as people we work with or decisions in our personal life. The question is, how do we make the right choice? And a few weeks from now, we will all be faced with life-changing and nation-changing decision. We will all be casting our votes, and voting is our birthright. So we have to make sure that we all go out and cast that vote. In every election, this is our chance to give our country a shift towards progress and development. We should all take part of this history. And with so much in our votes, we have to examine everything about the candidates, their platform, their character, their track record, their background, and of course using the competency framework that past President Grace Zata has shared with us. We also need to examine the walk of these candidates and not just the talk. The future of our nation is in your hand. As Roald Dahl said, somewhere inside all of us is the power to change the world. You have the power to change the course of our country. Make sure, I pray for all of us, and of course whoever it is that would be elected president, we will all be united with our desire that we will all be moving forward, especially after the crisis that we all went through. So I pray that we will all cast our vote and we will really exercise that power come May 9. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And again, I invite you to check the People Manager magazine online, www.peoplemanager.ph. And our show is open to partners and sponsors. Please contact Sarah. And for those interested to join People Management Association of the Philippines, the premier organization of HR leaders in the country, contact PMAP. Their contact details are on the screen right now. And I want to acknowledge and, of course, introduce the committee and people behind this online program, our president, Ellen Felido, COPA, and the Board of Trustees. Thank you so much for your support. All the members of PMAP's Branding and Marketing, Media and Communications Committee, thank you so much. And of course, our editor-in-chief of the People Manager magazine, Jovener Bataican. We also have our technical team helping us behind this show, Sarah, Jansen, Nadine, and Del. Thank you so much. We hope that this episode was helpful and insightful for all of you. Thank you so much to our viewers, sponsors, and to PMAP. Stay safe, everyone. Until our next episode. See you. Bye.